You're listening to Learning Leaders Spotlight, interviews with corporate L&D leaders. On each episode, we sit down with key industry experts to discover more about what's happening in the world of learning and development, from current trends and insights to the most valuable lessons learned along the way. Join us for a fresh perspective on all things training and the best direction forward. Here's your host, Leanne Langford.
Hi. Welcome to Learning Leaders Spotlight, the podcast where we interview the learning leaders of today to help the learning leaders of tomorrow. I'm your host, Leanne Langford. I'm the president of Training Pros. Training Pros is a learning and development contract staffing company where we like to say, when you have more projects than people, let us find you the right consultant to start your project with confidence. I'm really excited about my guest today. I'd like everyone to join me in welcoming Gregg Summers. He's Field Director, Learning and Development at Sysco. Welcome, Gregg.
Thank you, Leanne. I appreciate being on today with you and enjoy the opportunity to talk to you today.
Great. Well, let's start off by having you share with our audience a 60-second overview of who you are and what you do.
Okay. Well, I've been with Sysco for 20 years, and about half of that time I've been involved in learning and development, and my focus is what happens out in the field. So primarily the team that I lead is doing the training that's going to make the impact in terms of what's happening in the warehouses and on the distribution side of our business. And so they're going out into the field and they're working in warehouses, they're working with delivery drivers, they're working with the leaders of the front line that implement that training. And then I also do some leadership development up to the VP level for the entire corporation.
Wow. So you have a couple of important lines that you are responsible for there.
I really enjoy it.
Good. Well, it's a great segue to the next thing I want to know is what brought you to learning and development? What attracted you to this field?
I think my whole life I have been a learner. From a very small child, I was interested in learning, reading, studying things. That's always been kind of who I am. And so that's just natural to me. And I was in the sales side of our business, sales leadership side of our business, and I started getting asked, hey, will you come in and teach a class when we have a training class going on? And I did really well at that. They enjoyed having me do that. And so I would be asked more and more. And then when the role came open for me to be able to take on that role myself, then I was interested in doing that. And so I started off on the sales side of the learning in the business with Sysco. But for me, it was like the natural thing for me to do. I've enjoyed, it's kind of like teaching adults.
You know, a lot of us found our way into learning and development accidentally like that. We were doing a different role and we got to do a little training and said, this is fun. I enjoy this, or I get energy from this.
I would be in meetings with peers, and a lot of times after a meeting, someone would say, what were we just talking about? Or could you help me understand that? And I was someone who could break things down into simple terms and just felt like I had a natural knack for that. So felt like a natural transition for me.
That's great. I love to hear stories like that. This is also one of those fields that we very rarely leave because it's so enjoyable when you can keep doing it.
It's the best part of the business.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you've been in L&D quite a while. What are the most impactful changes you've seen in the last few years?
I think that while 2020 disrupted a lot of things, I think that made the most impactful change that I have seen, because now I'm interacting with people across the country. We've done training with people in Ireland. Well, you wouldn't have even thought about making those connections with people when you have to travel somewhere and you need to do an in-person event. Now you can get, I have virtual trainings where I'll have 200 people on a call, and they're from Canada, they're from multiple parts of our business, and it's just opened up a lot of opportunities. So for me, that has just opened up a world of, okay, who can we now connect with and who can we make an impact on? And so that for me has been the biggest thing.
I agree with you that 2020 was a huge impact on our industry. We suddenly, our requests from clients were completely changed.
Mm-hmm.
It was, now they're calling us saying, we have to figure out how to take this class and put it online. And then we have to figure out how to help our trainers learn how to do virtual training.
And that's so different. Someone who's good at standing in front of an audience might struggle with being on camera because they get so focused on what is it that I'm supposed to say, where when you're in front of people, you just kind of go with the flow and you know what you're supposed to say, but you're not scripted like there's the temptation to be on camera.
Right. And then there's the learning the new technology while you're doing your job on stage.
Yeah, juggling multiple screens and all these other things that are going on that are brand new.
And things that you were used to doing to be interactive to no longer work. So you have to figure out some other way to interact with your group.
But now I can reach out to someone in LA and say, hey, I have this call coming up and I'd like for you to be a guest on that call because you're a subject matter expert. And so we can lean on a lot more people and make an impact on a lot more people much more easily.
Yes. Oh, I definitely think the change has really helped our reach a lot. So, and reduce costs, I think. So.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Now you're hungry for getting out in front of people and being in person with people as well. So.
Yes, that's a big shift we're seeing right now is a lot more in person. They're pushing to go back in person for training again.
Yeah. Human element's so important.
Yes. Well, where do you see learning development heading from here? What's going to be the biggest changes that are going to be happening with us?
I think that we have to think about the things that we're not utilizing, the technology that we're not utilizing, being better with video and not just getting used to, okay, well, now we sit on camera and do training or we go live and do training, but thinking about how can I deliver options to people? Because, when I think about myself, I might typically start out my day listening to a podcast while I'm out walking in the morning. And I'm learning a lot from that, what's sitting right there on my phone available for me. And so we have to think about, okay, how can I deliver more, either shorter form or sometimes longer form, just depends on who the audience is. Just thinking a little bit more about what can we do that's different, that's going to connect with people in terms of the way that they learn and make it accessible to them.
I'm sure you have some very unique challenges with your company with how to reach the different audiences.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because they're in the middle of the thick of it, trying to get cases out. And so it's a hectic, chaotic environment.
Yes. And to say, well, we need you to sit down at the computer and do this 1 hour e-learning course, that's a big interruption of business.
And there's the temptation that when you're doing a 1 hour e-learning course, if it's not really captivating, then I'm going to kind of breeze through it and I'm not going to get out of it what's intended because it feels like it's just a requirement.
Yes. Yeah. That's a very common problem when you have things that are required, like compliance training or, like I'm getting my notices today. It's time to retake my cybersecurity training. We do it every year. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, that's for yes. the same silly videos that demonstrate all the risks that can take place. And yeah. So for us, we had to win over a lot of people because when we started really connecting with the supply chain side of our business, they weren't used to having a lot of learning and development offered to them. And so we had to prove the value of it because they do have that. They don't sit at a desk. And so you're going to ask me to sit at a desk for the next 90 minutes or for sometimes full day trainings. And so we had to really develop relationships and prove the value.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you've been able to meet that challenge because it does sound like a big one. So let's shift gears now and talk about who has been your most influential professional mentor.
I would say the person who heads up our global learning and development organization, Maria Sardo, she has been with Sysco for it's around 40 years or 38 years, somewhere in that mark. So, I mean, she was right out of high school, basically. And the thing that she is able to do is look at the environment and see what the needs are, asks a lot of questions, a lot of passion and energy around, not doing things the same way. So I think she's probably had the biggest impact.
Yeah, so having a mentor is so important. We have a lot of people listening who are trying to work their way into a leadership role. Would you give them any advice on, how impactful a mentor can be?
I think that a mentor, in the demonstration of caring about someone, that opens up the vulnerability of saying, hey, I need help. I could use some help. I have things to learn. And so the mentor gives you that person that you can reach out to when you have questions and maybe you're not necessarily sure you can ask someone else the questions. And so I think having a mentor is so valuable. And most people don't have a mentor. I've had situations where I volunteered for mentoring and kept up that relationship with someone for over a year. And, you can talk through a lot of situations with a mentor and see a lot of things that maybe you're not seeing from their perspective when you're just thinking about something within your own four walls. And so I think it's really valuable and probably something that is lacking in a lot of organizations.
Yeah. Some organizations will have formal mentoring programs, but for those that don't have a formal mentoring program, you can find someone who's willing to be a mentor anyway, even if it's just, someone for you to turn to for advice.
Well, I think most people would take it as a compliment that you reach out to them to ask. So the 9 times out of 10, you're going to get a yes when you ask someone.
Absolutely. So I'm a big proponent for getting a mentor, and for those of us who have gotten to where we wanted to go, becoming a mentor and offering your advice to people and offering your help.
Absolutely.
Um, what do you think is the most important skill in the workplace right now?
Asking good questions and listening. I think that we are too quick to think we have to solve a problem or give advice. And it stands out to people when you listen and you ask questions and you're not quick to jump to a conclusion or jump to give advice. And what you'll find is that there's probably something below the surface of what you think is the initial challenge. And that helps you to solve problems better and more quickly because you just waited a few more minutes or asked a few more questions to get to, well, what is it that we really need to be thinking about and talking about?
That's excellent advice. I do feel that there's a lot of need for people to learn to ask questions, myself included, and not assume.
When I started on the sales side of things, so I'm honestly an introvert. So I'm comfortable with getting up in front of a large crowd of people because I don't know why, but I feel comfortable doing that. But in terms of those smaller interactions, I really like to ask questions because it puts the focus on the other person and they're doing the talking. And I learned when I got into sales that if I ask them questions and put the attention on them, then it not only helped me to discover what it was that I needed to do to help them with their business and sell them products, but it also made them feel like I valued them and they were important to me and I wasn't just there to sell them something. And so in our learning and development side of the business and in what we're doing with teaching new leaders, that's one of the skills that we spend a lot of time on is how to ask good questions and how to coach people.
I think that's fantastic. And you know what? The best salespeople in the world are the ones who ask questions and listen.
Yeah, because I don't know what you need until I ask. I might assume that I do and show up with something, but
Yeah.
may not be
Well,
true.
on TV and movies, they depict the salesperson as convincing people to buy something they don't want, and that's not all what it is.
Well, it might work there in the moment, but long term, is that going to develop a relationship? And the answer is no.
Right. Um, I'm going to shift gears again and ask you, what's your favorite source for industry news and information?
I get an email multiple times a week, and I'm looking over here at my other monitor so I can remember the name of it. It is the International Food Service Distributors Association, and they encapsulate industry news, government news, tech and innovation news, and market news. And so there's multiple sections to this email that I get. And like, for example, one of the articles here talks about 37% of consumers say they're eating out less than a year ago. Well, for us, that's very important because we have to think about, okay, we're potentially going to have fewer cases needed at one of our customers or a potential customer. So how do we make ourselves stand out in that marketplace that might be getting tighter? So being on top of those trends, that one is very important for me. I get email through McKinsey and Company, which is more global, what's happening in the business marketplace. I also, because we are serving the restaurant industry, I get Restaurant Nation's news. So specific to the market that we're in, I read those kinds of things to see what the trends are, what's going on in the business world. And sometimes those will give me ideas about, okay, what's a training that we should do based on what I'm reading.
Yes, and it'll probably also give you better conversations with your stakeholders.
Absolutely.
I think that that's great advice that everybody in learning and development needs to be um, staying extremely current and well informed about the industry that they serve.
Yeah, because I can weave those things into maybe we have training that we do routinely over and over again, but if you can weave something in that is just happens to be news that came out today, then people can connect to that and relate to it.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, now this question is all for me.
Okay.
I'm a big reader, and this is how I get my reading list. What is one book that everyone wanting to move into L&D leadership should read?
The book that I have recommended the most in the last few years is called The Coaching Habit. And that book is focused on asking questions and being a little bit more curious. So the reason that I think that that book is so important is because that it can be broadly applied. So from my perspective, if I am thinking about training that I think is necessary, well, it's going to teach me that I need to ask questions to discern, is that really what's necessary? What does the audience think or potential audience think? Where are the challenges that they're having? And am I going to learn something that I didn't know by having that habit of just ask one more question than you think you need to? And in terms of leadership development, we spend a lot of time talking about asking better questions, asking open-ended questions, and using those to coach people. And so I think that that book has such a broad application that I would recommend reading that one.
It sounds like a great book. I've actually heard of it many times before, but haven't read it yet, so that's going on the list.
Okay. I love it. I would recommend it. And Michael, who wrote that book, is considered one of the top 50 coaches in the world, and has a fun way of. It's a fun book to read because he has a fun way of expressing himself.
Oh, good. I like fun. That's great. Well, you've been a fantastic guest today, Gregg. I really appreciate you joining us today. As our thank you, I don't know if you're aware, but our charity at Training Pros is that we plant trees in the world.
Oh, awesome.
And we've planted over 5,000 trees to date, and we would like to plant 5 more trees in your name as our thank you to you for joining us today.
Well, I appreciate that. That's an amazing surprise. I didn't realize that.
Well, I'm glad you like it. It's just we're a company of mostly women, and we want to find a way to do some good in the world while we're doing our jobs, and that's what we settled on as a group.
All right. Well, I'm looking out the window and I have a river birch in the. I love those trees. So more of those would be great. Thinking about planting another one. So yeah.
Well, we plant saplings, and they're in places that have experienced a natural disaster, or forest fire, something like that, to help get everything going again. But that's it for this week's episode of Learning Leaders Spotlight. We hope you enjoyed our conversation with Gregg Summers, and we hope you'll tune in next week to hear from another learning leader in another industry.
Thanks for joining us for the latest episode of Learning Leaders Spotlight, interviews with corporate L&D leaders. You'll find links in the show notes to any resources mentioned on today's show. If you're enjoying our podcast, please subscribe so you never miss an episode, and leave us a 5-star review.